Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Yakuza 3. So, recently I went through Yakuza 3 and I'm going to be talking about that. So, prior to this, I've played Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2. And I've already done videos about all three of those games. So check those out if you are interested. Anyway, so my thoughts on this game prior to playing it, basically I knew that this is one of the contenders for worst in the series, but other than that, I didn't have any plot elements spoiled for me, just that I knew that it was generally not liked very much. But yeah, getting that out of the way, I'm just going to go through the basic setup for the plot. So basically, 2 years have passed since the end of Yakuza 2. Kiryu now runs an orphanage in Okinawa, and the deed to this orphanage, which is on land that is owned by the Tojo clan, which is his former Yakuza clan, it gets stolen, so he needs to get it back or else the orphanage is going to shut down. And also at the same time, someone shoots one of his friends that also looks like his adopted father, who is supposed to be dead. So that's kind of the gist of the setup for the story. So just getting into kind of things I liked and didn't like. The first thing I liked is that it runs really well, since this is the Yakuza 3 remastered version on PS4. It runs at 1080p at 60 frames a second, which is really good. It was the same way in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami 1, but Kiwami 2 didn't run at, I think that ran just at 30 frames, but just having the 60 frames back is really nice. Also, overall, I just think that the story in itself, there are elements that are weaker than a lot of the rest, but I still liked it a lot, so I didn't think it was bad per se, but it was still good, but just one of the weaker ones. One of the things I actually was really surprised by is I actually thought that the main antagonist is actually pretty compelling as a character, even though they kind of just rushed all of that towards the end. But it didn't matter because I still thought it worked really well. And speaking of just characters in general, I think just the characters that were introduced in this game were also really great. So the guy who was shot and who's a clan patriarch, and then his men, especially Ryu-Kyu, who's kind of just becomes a new best friend type character for Kiryu, is also really great. And you have returning characters like Haruka, Majima, what's his name? Why can't I think of it? The sixth chairman, whatever. Daigo. I don't know why I was forgetting. Anyway, yeah, you get a bunch of returning characters, which I already thought were pretty nice. But that's about it for the things I liked. I'm kind of just going through this quickly. So things I didn't like quite as much. So the combat, for one, I think is definitely probably the weakest thing in the entire game. Compared to all the other ones, which I think the combat is really nice, I find the combat in this one to be more so annoying. Because it's either because normal enemies are just not fun because they just get taken down so easily and don't put up a very good fight, and any sort of more boss type enemy will just guard non-stop, and you can't really do anything about it unless you have a weapon equipped which has durability. So, and if they have a weapon equipped which does not have durability at all and it's just invincible, then you can't do anything. You just have to wait and pray that they stop guarding and just keep on hitting them. So I mean, if they just didn't guard nearly as much, I feel the bosses themselves would actually be a lot more enjoyable, since the AI that plays for the bosses is a lot smarter than the normal enemy ones, so I think it would have been just a much better fight, you know, if they'd stopped guarding as much. Another thing that I didn't like quite as much is that the sub-stories, they're, I feel like overall are a lot weaker than the ones from 0, 1, and 2, but the other thing is that they no longer, like, mark on the map where you're supposed to go for a sub-story once it's been accepted. So if you're like me and you just kind of pick them up and do them as you want, you just kind of forget where certain things are supposed to happen, and then inevitably you just can't do them all, which is unfortunate. Another thing that's kind of tied to combat is how you get EXP in this game. It's just very complicated, or not complicated, it's just, I don't like how they tried to do it in this one. So basically, in order to, like, level up your actions or, like, attacks or unlock new attacks, you have to, like, choose, like, one of 4, like, categories, and it won't show you what's coming, like, after the one. It won't show you what's happening 2 levels past that. So, like, I could see that, like, a next category would give me, like, more health and maybe a new attack, but after that I have no clue what's coming up next in the next one. Whereas in the other ones, it's a much more clear skill tree. Or if it's Yakuza 2, it just lets you choose anything. It's not like you have to be, like, at a certain part to do it. As long as you just have, like, the correct type of EXP, you can get it. So I think this is probably the worst leveling up has been in the entire series. Also, why I did say that I liked the story, it does feel like it's very rushed towards the end. And going off of that, it feels like too much time is spent in the wrong places, because the game's only like 12 chapters long, but you spend about like 5 or 6 of them messing with the kids at the orphanage, dealing with their stuff, instead of actually going about doing things. So like it felt like it was setting up something, and then they just ran out of time and just rushed it and put all the big story stuff in like the final 4 chapters. But not talking about story anymore, just like the game itself, the graphics, since this is like a really early PS3 game, it looks like a PS2 game running in a higher resolution, essentially, so it just did not age very well in that category. I'm not a super big graphics snob, but like when it looks like really off, I can't deal with it that well. Like some PS3 games have aged really well when it comes to graphics. I mean, I think GTA 5, like, everyone knows how those graphics look, and in every single port that's come afterwards, it's the same thing, but in just higher resolution. Another game like Persona 5 or Catherine is also a PS3 game, but most people probably played it on PS4, and the graphics are just fine. I think that art style in particular worked really great, and just went out of the park when you just add a higher resolution. But then, early PS3 game, is kind of struggling with finding a good graphics quality. Because that's why later on, when you have Zero and Kiwami 1, which were initially PS3 games that also got ported to PS4, the graphics look significantly better. And I was surprised to even learn that they were originally PS3 games in Japan only, because I just only knew them as PS4 games in America. But yeah, I'm just generally kind of rambling about that. Just the graphics did not age very well. Another thing which I thought was actually really surprising is just that, like, the game's soundtrack this is definitely one of the worst ones so far. I mean, it has a couple standout ones, like Fly, for instance, but other than that, it's not very remarkable, especially since, like, all the other ones have been, like, fantastic. So it's not necessarily that it was bad, it's just that it's just nothing really stands out except for, like, 3 in particular. Also something that was changed, but this is more so, I think, coming straight from playing 0, 1, and 2. I don't think running had been introduced into the series yet. So there is no running. It's just like walking. Like it's faster than the normal walking from 0, 1, and 2, but it's still like a lot slower than the sprinting. So when you walk around town, it just takes a lot longer, and there's just not that many taxis that are going to take you everywhere, so most of the time you're just getting around on foot, and that can be a lot longer than it needed to be. Also, just like going off kind of what I said about how the story was rushed, I think just like this one in particular was like the shortest one at all for me to beat. So I even like I remember reading it and I was like, dang, that was really it? That was kind of short. So I looked at like my log of playtime, and so for Yakuza 0 I have 49 hours, almost 50. Kiwami 1, 33 hours. Kiwami 2, 30 hours. And then with Yakuza 3 I had 22 hours. So that's a pretty significant one, considering that 0 nearly took me 50 hours, and this one I beat over a little over 20 hours. And I mean, if I wasn't, trying my best to do sub-stories, it probably would have been under 20. But, I mean, in general, I still think Yakuza 3 it's a pretty good game. I could recommend this to anyone that's interested in the series. I don't think you should, like, skip it because you heard it's bad. I mean, it's not bad. It's definitely, so far for me, it's, like, my least favorite from the 3, but, I mean, those other 3 were really, really good. So, I mean, like, the worst of a really great franchise is still always going to be pretty good and worth your time. But, yeah, I mean, if I had to rank it, I'd probably give it, like, a 5 out of 7. Even though there were, like, a lot of cons, I still think that it did have enough, like, pros, like, the story and characters were definitely the highlights, but I'm planning on moving forward. It's not like, oh man, this one was such a bad one, I'm gonna not play the rest of this series, because I've actually bought up to Yakuza 7, just because there's, stuff on sale and whatnot. So yeah, I plan on playing the rest of the series, making content on that probably in the near future. So yeah, look out for that whenever that drops. But yeah, Yakuza 4 sometime soon. I haven't started it yet. Really excited to do it whenever I finish Tears of the Kingdom, which will also be getting a video about. But yeah, thanks for listening in. Let me know what you thought in the comments. See you later.